Hi, I'm Siofra Bradigan, and this is Siofra's Magic Alcove. So I want to talk today about psychic attacks. I get a lot of people sending me messages, emails, etc., asking for help when they find my channel if they feel like they're under psychic attack. And in the beginning, I tried to help people myself by going onto the other planes and taking care of whatever it was that was going on. I had one woman who was pretty desperate, and I acquiesced. I felt pretty fantastic because it worked. It seemed to be a pretty powerful, I don't know, event session. She felt fantastic. She was very grateful. Certainly an ego boost, potentially. And then it started in again. And I did it a second time. And I tried giving her information, exercises, things to do in order to shore herself up so that she could fight it off herself. I think a third time happened, and again, I tried to intervene, tried to assist, and then I began to realize that either she wasn't doing the work that I was recommending her to do, or she was becoming dependent upon me to save her, so she wasn't motivated to try and do the work, and it wasn't good for me and it wasn't good for me to continue to do that. And because of that experience with that woman, I now no longer offer that, or I'm not even tempted to do that for other people. I feel sorry when people are actually undergoing any kind of psychic attack, but me going in and powering through it and stomping off, stomping the oppressor and so forth, it doesn't seem to me that it's really doing the individual who's undergoing this a benefit if they have to keep on coming back to have it fixed. So now I try to share the information, share what I've learned, give people exercises or assistance as I can in the form of knowledge, and expect them to figure this out on their own. Because if you are under psychic attack and you do figure out how to stop it, that is a personal power for yourself that no one can take from you. That kind of success goes a long way for the rest of your life. Someone else coming in and fixing it means that you owe them, maybe, or that you're still seeing other people as more powerful than you. And so, it's just my own personal ethics and trying to think of the greater good, long term good, and my own sanity, to be sure, because no one wants to fail people. It's one of those things. So I made some notes trying to think of different ways to talk about this and to cover this extremely complicated subject. Because, for one, the first question is, are you actually under attack? Is there actually another person out there? Excuse me. Is there actually another person out there that is focusing their malevolent attention in your direction and trying to muck up the works of your life? I think this goes along with curses as well. Psychic attacks and curses are kind of conjoined at the hip, perhaps. Um, so, yeah, we'll see where this goes. Like I said, it's a pretty complex subject. And there's different types of psychic attacks. There's spiritual attacks and mental attacks and emotional attacks, and you can have all of them at the same time if you're having a psychic attack. And then there's the, manipulation, someone manipulating you into thinking that you're being attacked, that kind of thing. And so the first thing to do is to look to yourself and to see what it is that that you can change and what the idea of being under psychic attack does to you, to your core self. One of the first things that comes to mind to me is fear. The idea of the fear, the dread, not knowing when it's going to happen, or if it's going to happen, or what is going to happen, the uncertainty, the big question. Sometimes you're not sure who is someone doing this, who they might be, which generates a huge amount of anxiety. So all of those negative feedback emotions and feelings and stuff like that kind of lead to you feeling powerless and extremely insecure in your life, your abilities, your path, your chosen methods of work, whatever it might be, your future. And that is not helpful in any way. I know I've talked about paranormal investigations and that the worst response that you can have in any kind of a unusual paranormal event is fear, because fear generates an energy that then can be used by spirits and so forth to amp up whatever the paranormal event might be. It sort of feeds it. And the same thing happens if there's a psychic attack going on. Your fear and anxiety and your sense of powerlessness and the dread and so forth that you feel the hypervigilance that comes into it looking for anything and everything that might have something to do with it. This all is sort of a source of energy for the mechanism of a psychic attack, whether it's something you're doing to yourself, which can happen, or someone else is trying to do to you, and you are, without realizing it, cooperating with and assisting in the process by feeding that energy into the whole mass of stuff. So it creates a negative spiral because you're afraid and you're full of anxiety. Something happens and you're hyper vigilant. So then any little thing that happens, whether it has anything to do with the psychic attack or not, then or the curse becomes a part of it. So then your hypervigilance is focused on negative input. Whatever thing happens during your day, you can't find a good place to park, someone yells at you in the store, uh, it's not a good environment at work, I don't know, you suddenly get a bill and it's more than you thought it was supposed to be. It doesn't matter what the stimulus is when you're that kind of hypervigilant looking for evidence to prove to yourself that it's happening, then things that are unrelated can get all sort of piled into the same box. And it's all labeled psychic attack or curse. And trying to avoid that trap that all cause is correlated. They say causation and correlation are not necessarily connected to each other. Just because something happens and then immediately after something else happens doesn't necessarily mean that these two events are connected. Kind of like with the flu shot and people catching the flu. That's probably the most common real world example we have of people incorrectly associating an event with an effect. And they think that the flu shot is the cause of them getting the flu, even though there are no viable or live flu viruses in the flu shot. And then the incubation period for the flu is a week or more. So if you get the flu shot and you get sick the next day, your immune system might have responded. But if you end up actually getting the flu, it's not because you got the shot. But people won't be convinced of that because they know, this happened and that happened, and they know that they're connected. But that's the thing, they weren't. And so that's one of the things to watch out for in yourself, to watch out for that tendency to just grab at everything there is as evidence of being under attack. Then, of course, if you're not sure, you can have a lot of doubt about it. So self-doubt can come in from that level. It also can come in from the level of, um, I don't think I can defend myself. That's another a big part of the thing. If you've got that negative self-talk going on, where you feel powerless and you're convinced that you're powerless and that the person who is attacking you or whatever it happens to be is more powerful than you have set up a no-win scenario in your own mind where they can do whatever they want and you can't stop them. I sort of had that when I was a kid, um, a core belief that there was some kind of a horrific evil hiding inside of me, and that at some point it would come out and I would be powerless to do anything about it. It would just have its way with me, and that would be that. And that I know was implanted from religion, going to church, reading the Bible, and then having horrific experiences as a child and thinking there must be something awfully wrong with me in order for the universe to treat me that way. And that somehow I caused it. It was my fault. So you got the self doubt, and then you've got a lot of times the guilt. Um, like you've done something bad, you've been a bad person, you haven't always known what you were supposed to do, you've done things you're ashamed of or whatever, and maybe you deserve to be punished. That's a huge thing right there. And if you have that going on, that's really going to feed into the whole notion of a psychic attack, because then if you feel on some level that you deserve whatever it is that's coming to you, whether you did something when you were a child or as a young adult, whatever it might be, um, or just because you have so much self-doubt in your own being, um, yeah. So looking at your own mechanisms and seeing what might be there can be extremely useful as far as that goes. You really have to think about it, because, like with any relationship, it takes two in order for it to work, either for positive or negative. And if you are under psychic attack and the attack is continuing to succeed, on some level, you're letting your defenses down, you're allowing the energy in, you feel that you deserve it, you're guilty about something. Um, so, working on yourself and strengthening your own self image and personal power, your view of the universe, and challenging these kinds of assumptions is important to do no matter what, whether you're under psychic attack or not. It's important work. Then there's also the kind of person who feels like they're under attack and doesn't want it to stop because it's become part of an attention seeking practice. It's like some of the people that have contacted me in the past and they're looking for help. It's like, they're in dire situations, the words that they use, it's like imminent danger, someone's going to kill me, and so forth. And they're looking for connection, they're trying to seek my attention, anyone's attention. Maybe they feel unseen, I don't know. But if it is part of that, like some people get sick because they enjoy the idea or the attention that they get from other people. Munchausen's syndrome is that in a nutshell. Someone who either makes themselves sick or pretends that they're ill in one way or another in order to get the positive in reinforcement and attention from others, where people shower you with gifts or praise or sorries or compassion or whatever it might be, and it feeds that cycle and it'll keep on going. Which is why some people don't get well when they get psychic healings or go to the doctor. It's like it's a complex thing. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts in our brains and our spirits and so forth, and our life experiences and whatnot. And only you, of course, know or can tell for sure whether you fit into that kind of a category. I think that all of us do to a certain extent, because we want attention. We will take negative attention if we can't get positive attention, because, interaction and communication is sort of part of being a human being, and that's what family's supposed to do for us. And if you're like me and you were raised in a bad family environment where there was a lot of manipulation and whatnot going on, then your idea of attention is negative based attention, and it's hard to break that cycle. Why I recommend psychotherapy a lot to help people with that kind of thing. There's also the idea that, woe is me, this is unfair, why is this happening to me and not to someone else? What have I done? And that's just sort of a pointless exercise in futility, because it has nothing to do with fairness. It's like I said, it's too complex for that. The universe isn't, you know, I'm going to reward you because you're a good person and I'm going to punish you because you're a bad person. It's a more nuanced when it comes to what happens, and it's complex with society and government and religion and family and culture and mythology and all of that stuff. But that idea of looking for and seeing patterns where they may or may not exist is definitely an issue. And like I said, assuming that everything is related is a mistake. In general, that's not the case. So, the kinds of different attacks, psychic attacks, it can be a purely spiritual attack. Now, that can be from a religious group that doesn't like the path that you've chosen. Certainly, there's many people that experience a spiritual attack from like a church group where everybody there is praying to try and save you from the path that you've decided to follow, and are, in their minds, worry that you're going to go to some terrible place when you die because that's part of their belief system, and they don't trust that you can make up your own mind and make your own decisions and so forth. And that is, I think, probably one of the more common types of psychic attacks out there on the spiritual plane, because people are very judgmental and critical of other people's choices. They feel very threatened when people don't do the same things that they do for some reason, which is beyond me, because variety is the spice of life, and why would everyone want to be the same? But, that's me. And, so when it comes to fending off a spiritual attack, if it's family that's got a church group together going for you, you're going to have some challenges as far as rejecting that kind of energy and staying strong in yourself. Um, Mental attacks are probably pretty common. In the We have talked about thought forms in other videos, and thought forms are real. They exist. We create them all the time. Some of them are bigger and stronger and more um, focused than others. I mean, we're always sending thoughts to one another, which is why you can think of someone and then they'll call. They've picked up the thought of you thinking about them, whether they're conscious of it or not. So with the with the mental attacks, that certainly can go along with the kind of spiritual attack I was talking about. And it's going to depend upon the person who's sending it, how good they are at creating thought forms and sending them your way. How, if they're focused on it and really trying to work at it, then their thought forms are going to be stronger. That doesn't mean you have to accept them or you can't fight them. It just means that they know what they're doing, and it's not just an unconscious thing thinking about you randomly and so forth. It's, in my view, fairly easy to fight off that kind where people are just randomly thinking about you. If you're strong in yourself and you know who you are and you know what is your responsibility and what is not, then those things don't have like a hook. And this is how this kind of stuff works. It's like someone sends out energy to you, whether it's positive energy or negative energy. It has nowhere to sit and nowhere to go if you don't give it something to latch on to. So, whatever's going on, think about what it is that you're doing that's latching on or giving a hook to the energy and allowing it in, because ultimately you're the only one who can not let it in. You have to stop letting it in yourself. It's not about controlling the other person, it's controlling yourself and not giving it a hook. Like in Tai Chi, one of the exercises that you do, push hands, push feet, is going in front of and with someone else's force and not fighting it or pushing it. It's like you let the other person do all the work, all the energy and so forth. Sort of like Taekwondo too, I think. And their force, they can knock themselves over, they can blow themselves up. Well, not literally, but figuratively in this case. Uh, all of the energy that they're putting forth to try and hurt you, you can just redirect in another direction, and so it doesn't get to you. It's just sort of like there it goes over to the side, and it doesn't have to knock you off your feet. I had an exercise I was doing with this guy in a class, and he did not understand the concept of push feet. We were doing push feet, and he kept trying to knock me over. He thought it was like some kind of a robust thing, and I was grounded and centered well enough in my body that whenever he hit my foot, it just went out to the side and then came back to center. And the rest of me was so grounded and centered that I didn't move, just my leg moved. And so that's the kind of mental ability you want to foster, because you don't have control over what they're doing. That's the thing. Remember that. You only have control over yourself. You have no control over anyone else's actions, um, or their intent or anything else. It's like that's all on them. But you can control your response and how you deal with it and what you do with it, and all of that. That's where our power is our ability to respond or not respond in this case, not take in, not accept, not allow, not engage, not give a hook, and whatnot. I'm sure all of you at some point have been in a pointless argument with someone who has like an opposite point of view. And no matter what you say, they come back with something else. And then you're in this back and forth, just constantly trying to batter each other's walls down, throwing one hook after another, trying to get in there and find a weakness in their argument or what have you, so you can break their mind open so they understand what you're talking about. And it doesn't work. It just causes strife and confusion and irritability and bad bad energy and so forth, and conflict, and doesn't succeed. But anyway, one of those little real world examples there. So emotional attacks, those are pretty common with like sociopaths. Well, both they like to attack on a lot of different levels. Sociopaths are really good at figuring out what it is you care about and attacking that, figuring out what your weaknesses are, and exploding those out into like large things, using victim blaming to make you responsible when you don't like what they're doing, and so forth. They try to argue back into it's your fault. This is really common to see in a cult scenario where whatever happens to you is somehow your fault. So it's not what I'm trying to say with a psychic attack. I'm just saying that it's not your fault that it's happening, but you have the power to not engage in it and to stop it, just to be clear. But anyway, so um, yeah, the way uh, manipulation, gaslighting, and so forth, you see something happen, you know that they did something, and you say something about it, they tell you that you're wrong, that you're crazy, that you misinterpreted it, that you don't know what you saw. Then you start to doubt yourself, and then that self doubt starts getting in. And then they ask you why you're doing this to them, what's wrong with you and what's wrong with them. And they just sort of turn the whole thing around until somehow you turn out to be the bad guy. And if you fail to cooperate with what they want, then they'll do the same thing. They'll turn you into the bad guy with everyone else and tell everybody that they know that you did something to them, even though they're the ones who did it to them, to you. Sociopaths are tricky. There's no doubt about it. Um, and not only victim blaming, but toxic positivity comes in, and that's the, you you need to be a better person. My first husband was really good at manipulating my desire to be perfect and to be kind and be a nice person and to evolve into a better version of myself. And he would use that as a way to manipulate me into situations that I didn't like and weren't comfortable with, and then point out the fact that I wasn't as evolved as I wanted to be because that bothered me. And if I was truly evolved, that wouldn't bother me. Therefore, it was my fault that it bothered me, not his fault that he did it. Yeah. So, being clear to yourself, really important. Clear what's right and wrong for you and what's really going on. And like I said, you can't control them. You can only control yourself getting away, changing the dynamics, creating boundaries, all that stuff under your control. So, when my friend from my first marriage, when I met her, and we weren't really super close, but I knew her pretty well. When I went to the States, she stayed up in Canada and she was in Vancouver area. And when I came back to Canada, I went to go see her. And I talked about this in one of my videos about psychic attacks because she was definitely a good example of that. And she had two women, sisters, who were trying to get her under their sway. They were using the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey and using the suggested spells and workings in that book to do negative black magic, trying to make their quote unquote enemies suffer, etc., with definitely ill ill intent. There's no doubt about it. And she tried that on me. They convinced her I was her enemy, and so she not manipulated. She what's the word? Mangled? Yeah, a bunch of cookies. She tortured the poor things, and she defaced them, etc. That was the ritual they were doing, and to attack me, to destroy me, and whatnot. And my natural um, energy shielding, I guess. I didn't even notice that she tried that. It was a non-event for me, but for her, the backlash on her was pretty intense, and she started having acid flashbacks or something like it because she was seeing demonic figures and everything that were crowding her room, and called on me for help. And apparently, I came in the astral or mental plane and don't remember that either. I wasn't conscious of it, and talked her down. So she survived. So when I got back together with her, that had already happened. This before I was there. So she told me about that and told me that she really wanted to get rid of these two women and to get them out of her space. So the first thing I did was tell her to find all of the things that that woman had given her and to get rid of them. So she did the easy stuff first, whether it was jewelry or whatever, anything that was gifted to her. And that's one of the things that someone who's actually trying to do a psychic attack on you will often place a physical object in your home, on your person, on your property, so that they have a physical link that they can focus on to get their energy in to your space. So if you think you're under psychic attack and you know who you think it is and you know what they've put in your house, and getting rid of those things is a first step in helping to limit their access to your environment. And so we did that, and we walked around and found all this stuff and got rid of it. And there was one thing left, which was a picture that the woman had drawn. And so I decided we needed to burn that because it was too intact. I thought just throwing it away wasn't going to be good enough, and so we did. We burnt the picture and got one of the most amazing photos I've ever seen of a disembodied hand coming out of the fog behind the picture and grabbing at it between the two of us. That was pretty awesome. That was a Polaroid. I wish I had that picture. That'd be pretty neat. But anyway, that's one of the steps to take, because if it is that kind of a focused attack. A physical object is not uncommon. So check for that kind of thing. Um, and a lot of times, too, the perpetrator will repeat certain phrases to you to try and victimize you and make you more a victim. Like, you can't help yourself. You can't fight me. There's nothing you can do. That kind of stuff to make you doubt yourself and get back into those kind of circles in your brain. Undermining your self-confidence in your own power, either by pumping up their own power and ability and bragging on it and saying how great they are, or by denouncing your abilities and telling you how weak you are, or a combination of the two things, whatever it happens to be, or how they're just thinking about you and just sort of putting that out there in the atmosphere. And if you have any self-doubt and you don't believe in your own abilities and so forth, which is usually one of the reasons why you're actually succumbing to a psychic attack, then that reinforcement of that, every time they succeed in getting through your boundaries, then they have proven that they are right and that you are wrong and that you can't do anything about it, and becomes that negative feedback loop again, which you have to break. So sometimes they can call on other spirits to try and harass you. And again, if you've got good spiritual boundaries and psychic boundaries and stuff like that, beings that haven't been given permission to be in your space aren't allowed to come in. They won't be able to get in there. But if you're still very new at that and you're very unsure of your own abilities and you don't believe on an unconscious level that you have the juice necessary, because you're thinking of this as like a power thing, it's not. It's not about they have more power, you have less power. It's about you claiming the power of your own self. It's like, it's not about whatever they're doing. It doesn't matter what they're doing or how much level of energy or whatever they can put out and how much power they might have. That is not the issue at all. The only issue really is you believing that no one and nothing can get into your energy field without your permission, and you don't give your permission, period. Is that self-confidence, that um, autonomy, self-autonomy, the you are the master of your own spirit, your own self, your own environment. And they could take, I don't know, a nuclear bomb of energy and drop it on your head, and it wouldn't matter, because it's not about their strength. It's about yours, uh, your authority over yourself, and this is the you decide what's you. And so if you don't think of it in those terms, you don't think of it as they've got more experience, they've got more power, they've been at this for a long time, they know what they're doing, um, they're like super evil and horrible or whatever, and I'm not. If you can get out of that narrative altogether, that can help significantly, because then you're not setting up this like comparison thing in your brain. It's like, so the only thing that will work in that scenario is you having more power than them. And yeah, it is not, it's not a good tactic, let's say that way. Um, so sometimes people will just send you random thoughts that are negative, not because they want to or that they're trying to, just because they are. And we're more sensitive than the average person and we may pick up on it. Again, that comes down to our own responsibility to not accept things coming in from, strangers or family members or whatever. It doesn't matter what they think about us, because it's our relationship between ourselves and the universe that is the primary relationship and the only relationship that actually matters when it comes down to it. It's like how you are in the universe and how you relate to the universe and how you interact with the universe, and they are just a side hustle trying to get in on the action. So, ignore, ignore, ignore. That's kind of the main thing. So, not everything that you might experience is going to be an actual attack. It just might be some, jerk off who just has a lot of opinions and is thinking negative stuff at you because, they think they know better. And they don't know who you are. In fact, we practically don't know who we are, so how the heck can they? Right? Let's look at it that way. It's like if you don't know who you are as well as you'd like to, some random person on the internet or on the street or even a family member that or a friend that you haven't seen in 20 years doesn't know you. So, who cares? So that brings us to things to do. Taking personal responsibility for your own thoughts and actions. Thinking about the things that you can control versus the things you can't. So we've established you can't control whatever they're doing. So just even forget about them altogether because they're not important. In fact, if you can think of them as a little bug walking down the street, just waiting for someone to step on them, why not? It's like they have as little impact as the ant on the sidewalk, maybe less, as the ant might have an important job to do. I don't know. Don't want to diss the ants here. But you know what I mean? It's your thoughts feeding their power is something you don't want. So you can switch your thoughts around to decrease their power, your idea of their power. They're insignificant. It doesn't matter. They don't matter. Whatever they want to try to do, it doesn't matter. It's like the sun's still going to be shining, the grass is still going to be growing, the animals are still going to be wandering around on the planet, the trees are still going to be there. All of those things that are important and real are unaffected by whatever it is that's going on in their head. And if you can get yourself in that space, like how much would the tree care? Or how much would the rock on the hill care? Or how much would the sun care? You know, try and like get a good overview of the situation and not be down here in the fight, in the fisticuffs. Because if it's a head-to-head thing, then someone has to win, right? And someone has to lose. If you're not in a fight, there's no winners, there's no losers. You're just you, and they're doing their own thing. If they want to hit their head against a brick wall until it's bloody and bleeding, I guess that's up to them. And expend all their energy on something that's not working. You don't want to do that. Let them do that. They can hit themselves so they're black and blue. So noticing your own thoughts when they start to go towards towards the I'm under psychic attack, I have a curse. When you start to head into that direction, do things to shift that conversation in your own mind. And you can do the self-care kind of stuff that you can do. Find um, something that works for you. And we'll get to some of the stuff that I came up with, but everyone's going to have different things. But taking personal responsibility for your own stuff, that's key. Because if you don't take personal responsibility for it, if you're just the victim and they're just doing this to you and you have no personal responsibility for how you're acting or how you're feeling or how you're responding or whatever, then it's not it's not going to work either. It's kind of a weird, I don't know, not weird, but anyway. So, self-care, taking care of you, doing what makes you happy, doing what gives you joy, self examination to look at yourself and see where you are in this scenario. What are the things about you that are attached to this happening or are letting this happen or think that you can't fight, whatever it happens to be. So, examining that and doing things, talking to a therapist, writing things down, burning them, whatever, getting things out. And I want to say a little bit about that. Um, just intellectualizing what's going on and telling people what someone is doing to you as if it's a fact is not helpful. For one, because it reinforces the reality in your own brain that this is what's happening. Talking about the feelings that you have is helpful. That's letting them out. And you let the feelings out and let them go. And there's a difference between the feelings of it, like, why is this person doing to me It's unfair. Uh, this is, I feel threatened. I feel abandoned. I feel attacked. I feel, something along those lines, whatever it is, because everyone's situation is so different. It's acknowledgement that the past happened, but feeling the feelings of what happened in the past rather than the ideas, the litany of the abuse. It's more the actual energy of the abuse, if that's what indeed took place, if there's that kind of relationship between you. And it's not the same thing. I clearly remember when I understood my childhood as an intellectual exercise. I knew all the things that happened to them, I knew the events that took place, I could talk about it, I didn't think it was bothering me because I knew all this. Then I shifted, and I shifted into experiencing the emotions that I had at the time that the abuse took place. That's completely different. And if you haven't done that, you don't know what I'm talking about. When you do that, you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't know how else to say it. So we are partially responsible for creating our own reality. We talk about that a lot. You're creating your space, your life, your choices, create your path. Everything that happens around you is a part of you creating your own reality. This is not like creating a reality where, um, you're flying through all these dimensions. That's a whole different subject. But just creating the reality of your personality and the life that you're in right now. Um, and then you have to watch out for delusional thinking, because if you've gotten into the everything that's happening is related to the attack and to or to the curse, then you're going to have some delusional thinking involved in there, because you've incorrectly lumped together unrelated things to make the thing that's going on bigger. So always looking for that and trying to engage in critical thinking. But the reality is, it's up to you. You are the one who decides how this is going to go. So I've already touched on some of the stuff that I have on the back of this. I'm talking about feeding and fueling the attack with fear, belief in the power of the attacker, lack of belief in your own ability, repeating the story and putting the attacker in the powerful and as powerful and yourself as weak, repeating the story to gain sympathy in some cases, or and wanting others to do the work for you, and then the attachment, the Tai Chi of interaction. So apparently I covered that with that before turning my paper over. So let's get to the practical things, the shielding and grounding and that kind of thing. Um, Again, remember, you can only affect yourself. So shielding your aura and not accepting external energy, negative external energy, takes practice. Uh, One of the ways you can practice is by walking into a Walmart or something like that to see how well it's working. And if you're picking up a bunch of stuff when you walk into a setting like that, or into a secondhand store or what have you, then you know you have work to do in order to keep that at a distance and get and stay in that overview perspective. Um, and we're not all, none of us are perfect, so sometimes we're better at it than others. But the idea of the shield for me is that it's a permeable membrane, so I can accept positive energy coming from people and from the world, from the earth, from the universe, from the beings that might be around me that have my best intentions at heart. They have good intentions for me, and so forth. And I will accept that kind of energy, warnings to keep me safe, that kind of stuff. But negative energy from other people who are having a bad day, I might notice it and see it, but I don't take it. Like when I was up at the prison, there was this one prison guard who just absolutely hated my guts. I He didn't. My existence was an offense to his reality. He hated seeing me come up there to work with the guys, and every time I encountered him, there was this like negative, And he's the one that one day he told me how much he hated birds, that they were useless and all they did was poop and fly at his head, especially the swallows. We had a bunch of swallows. They had swallow hutches that they put up on the telephone poles, so houses for the swallows to make nests. And when they're nesting and they have little ones, they're pretty aggressive about protecting their environment, and they will dive bomb at people's heads because they want to warn you away. But it just was a pretty clear view into his internal reality and how sad and bereft of beauty and wonder and joy his world was. I didn't feel sorry for him in the sense that I would have wanted to have a conversation with the guy because he was just an a-hole. Absolutely no way. But it did give me an insight into the workings of his mind, and I was able to see that without having it impact me directly, without his negative energy coming in and ruining my day. So that's the kind of shielding. It's like it doesn't mean that you're completely unaware of what's going on around you, but it means that it's not going to change your behavior and make you do something you're going to regret later. That you are in charge and in control of your environment still, regardless of what their environment is like, even if you see it. But I also have my shielding up to where if someone is thinking dangerous thoughts like they're going to hurt me, then I want to know because my safety is important to me. I want to make sure that my body stays well and unharmed as much as possible. So, so you don't want to like just blank everything out. When it comes to a psychic attack, if you know the attacker, then you can sort of specifically state that to the universe and to your shield and just tell it this is about using your will. When they talk about will being magic and doing magic and they say your will is all you need, is not true that it's all you need. But in this situation, you definitely need to use your will because it's your willpower, your individual energy that determines a lot of this stuff. There's plenty of other things to learn and to, to do better and so forth. But this particular thing is about your will. And you are putting your will, you're deciding that this particular person's energy is not allowed in yours, regardless of whether you're awake or asleep, whether you know that they're trying to get at you or not. It's you've got automatic watchdogs, energetically speaking, all around you, and they're going to be like just rejecting the energy. You don't even have to worry about sending it back to them, although mine is set up that way. In if I get random negative energy from people, my shield is programmed to send it back to them. Whether they receive it or not, I don't care. I'm sending it back to them, period. That's the way that works. And whatever happens after that is not my business because it's not under my control. So that's it, right? Remember what's under your control and what's not under your control. So this right here, this is under my control. Anything that happens outside of me, not under my control. So, grounding yourself is also really important because that helps you to develop better boundaries too and gives you a source of energy, especially if you felt weakened by the attacks that you've undergone. So you want to have a source of clean, um, unadulterated energy, and grounding achieves that end. You can put your negative energy in. There's lots of different exercises you can do for that, where you breathe in the positive energy and exhale the negative energy into the earth. You can breathe anger. I did this one a lot when I was on the Kispiox because I was going through a lot of rage. I would put a black stone on my forehead like this and I would scream at the universe and my rage and put it in the black rock, and then I'd throw that rock in the river and give it back to the universe. It's like it didn't change what was happening around me, but it made me feel better. So again, what I could control, what I couldn't control. So you got to figure what that out. Definitely destroying any physical objects that you've gotten from this person, either burying them or dissolving them or burning them. Um, you can decharge them in the ground and then give them to Goodwill. so they don't have any attachment energetically to the person who's been using them as a focus. So you don't feel like, responsible for maybe passing on the curse or what have you, those cursed objects and whatnot. Got to watch out for that. Reducing the amount of attention and time and energy that you spend worrying about it, about the attack, or focused on the person who's doing the attacking every single time it comes up. Find something else to do, whether and fill your space with the stuff that is helpful to you, like the things that you love to smell, the things you like to eat, the things you like to cook, the sounds you like to hear, the music that you are fond of. Whatever it happens to be, you can charge up your environment with you-ness by putting that stuff in there and pull yourself out of any potential negative spiral you might be going down. As soon as you notice that thought process starting, it's like you're just sort of wandering around, and all of a sudden you start thinking about the attacker, and then you start thinking about all the stuff that happened to you and how unfair it was, and you don't understand why this is going on, and then stop yourself. Then bring yourself back, and then refocus your energy. Do an art project, cook something to eat, take a bath and ritually cleanse yourself. Put your hands underneath running water to let the thought go and let the energy go, so that you're clear of it. Anything and everything, whatever it is that works for you, do that instead, and then focus on something else. Watch a funny movie, um, you know, talk to a friend that you like. Distract yourself from putting energy into that, because you don't want to feed it. And that's what happens. You put energy into it, you're feeding it. So, anyway, and then forgive yourself for not knowing how to do that sometimes, or for getting it wrong, or for indulging in momentary lapses and so forth, because we're all learning and we're all growing, and you can only get it at the point when you can get it. You don't know what it is you don't know until you know it, and then realize you didn't know it before. It becomes a revelation or an epiphany, which are cool. I like those. I've had a few myself. And not knowing it before the epiphany doesn't mean anything at all. It just means you weren't ready to process that particular part of your life or information or understanding of what's going on. And always understand that everything is constantly in flux. Nothing ever stays the same. The only thing you can actually count on is the fact that things will change. So if you're in charge of yourself, you can change them in the direction that makes you better, and you happier, and you healthier, and you stronger, and you more confident in your own power, and less interested and less caring about what other people might be doing or trying to do to you. So hopefully this has been useful. I mean, I've been trying to think of how to approach the subject for a while, and I'm looking forward to some questions on this one. And, we explore these things together. You help me understand better how to talk about some of this stuff, or what needs to be talked about, because I don't know sometimes, because I've been through it and I'm over it. I'm on the other side of some things. And so, like, yeah. So I'm trying to deconstruct what this is, what the anatomy of a psychic attack is. So, anyway, I hope everybody is doing really well. And like I said, hopefully this is useful to everybody, whether you're under psychic attack or not. I think there's some gems in there. And blessed be. This is Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan.